India welcomes stronger trade with Burkina Faso, especially in premium cashew and cocoa. We value Burkina Faso's organic quality and see great potential in supplying our booming snack and chocolate industries. This partnership promises mutual growth, linking West African farmers to India's expanding consumer market.
Africa is done playing by old rules, and the world wasn't ready for what just happened. Burkina Faso has struck a massive cocoa and cashew deal with India, and this single move is shaking global markets to their core. For decades, others controlled the profits while Africa supplied the raw goods, but not anymore. This deal is more than trade, it's a bold power move, one that signals a new era where Africa sets the terms, shapes the markets, and steps forward as a rising global force.
The sun rises over the golden savannas of West Africa, casting long shadows across a land that has long been defined by resilience and ambition. In the heart of this landscape, Burkina Faso emerges not just as a producer of cocoa and cashew nuts, but as a symbol of Africa's rising economic independence. Today, the world watches as Burkina Faso signs a historic trade agreement with India, a deal that could redefine the dynamics of global agriculture, challenge established trade powers, and signal the continent's bold march towards self-determined prosperity. This is more than a trade deal. It is a seismic shift. Burkina Faso, historically reliant on traditional partners and aid-driven markets, has taken a decisive step to assert itself as a major player in the global cocoa and cashew industry. India, one of the world's fastest-growing economies and a dominant force in the spice, sugar, and cashew markets, now becomes a strategic ally in Africa's quest for economic sovereignty. Together, these nations are not just exchanging commodities, they are reshaping the narrative of African trade. For decades, Africa's agricultural exports were funneled through European and North American markets. Cocoa from West Africa often flowed to processing centers in Europe, its value multiplied before returning to African markets as chocolate, cocoa butter, and confectionery goods. Cashews, similarly, were exported raw, stripped of value-added opportunities that could have transformed local economies. This asymmetry kept Africa in a position of dependence, where raw material exports generated revenue, but rarely built sustainable industrial ecosystems. Enter Burkina Faso. With its fertile lands, committed agricultural workforce, and strategic geographic position, the country has positioned itself to break this pattern. By partnering with India, Burkina Faso gains access to not only a vast consumer market, but also to expertise in processing, logistics, and value addition. Indian companies, keen on securing stable supplies of cocoa and cashews for their booming confectionery and snack industries, view Burkina Faso as a reliable, politically stable source of premium raw materials. This deal, meticulously negotiated over months of diplomacy, is designed to ensure mutual growth, technological transfer, and long-term market stability. The numbers alone are staggering. Burkina Faso anticipates that this agreement will increase its cocoa exports by over 40% within the next 5 years, while cashew shipments are expected to surge by more than 60%. The influx of foreign investment accompanying the deal promises to modernize processing facilities, introduce advanced storage techniques, and improve transportation networks, a boost that could reverberate across West Africa. Neighboring countries, from Ghana to Ivory Coast and Mali, are observing closely, recognizing that Burkina Faso may be setting a blueprint for regional trade independence. But this story is not just about economics. It is about power, influence, and the subtle yet dramatic rebalancing of global trade alliances. For decades, Africa's agricultural sectors were shaped by colonial legacies and global power hierarchies. European trading companies, and more recently multinational conglomerates from the United States, dictated the terms of export contracts and pricing. African nations, rich in resources but often poor in negotiating leverage, were forced to accept conditions that limited domestic growth. Burkina Faso's New Deal with India signals a departure from that era, a statement that Africa is capable of asserting its value and negotiating on its own terms. The political implications are equally significant. India, eager to expand its footprint in Africa, views the partnership not merely as a trade opportunity, but as a strategic engagement. By supporting Burkina Faso's agricultural ambitions, India strengthens its influence in West Africa, balancing against traditional Western powers that have long dominated the region's trade and investment flows. For Burkina Faso, aligning with a rising Asian power offers diversification, reducing dependence on European and American markets, and creating space for more competitive trade policies. This is diplomacy through economics, a quiet, powerful assertion of sovereignty. In towns and villages across Burkina Faso, the mood is electric. Farmers, cooperatives, and local traders are already seeing the potential benefits. Modern storage facilities are being planned, and processing plants are set to expand, ensuring that more of the raw materials harvested locally remain in the country for processing. Communities that once relied on seasonal export cycles are preparing for year-round engagement with international markets. The ripple effect on employment, infrastructure, and technological skill transfer could be transformative, turning agricultural hubs into centers of innovation and economic resilience. Global powers are watching closely. Traditional European importers of cocoa and cashew nuts are beginning to recalibrate their strategies. The United States, a long-standing investor in African agriculture, recognizes the shift but has limited room to intervene without appearing intrusive. Meanwhile, other Asian nations are evaluating similar partnerships, sensing that Africa is no longer a passive supplier but an active negotiator shaping trade patterns. The geopolitical stakes are subtle yet significant. Control over agricultural supply chains, influence over emerging markets, and the ability to shape the future of Africa's economic trajectory. Beyond economics and politics, there is a cultural and symbolic dimension. Cocoa and cashew nuts, staples of West African agriculture, have historically carried stories of colonial extraction and economic marginalization. By controlling the terms of trade and securing high-value partnerships, Burkina Faso and India are rewriting this story. African farmers can now participate in value chains that elevate their products, receive fair compensation, and gain access to global markets on more equitable terms. This is empowerment through commerce, a quiet revolution that may redefine Africa's role in global supply networks. Yet, challenges remain. Logistics, political stability, and global market volatility are real concerns. Exporting large volumes of cocoa and cashews requires reliable infrastructure, roads, ports, storage, and transportation networks. Burkina Faso must navigate these complexities while ensuring that local communities benefit fairly. India, too, must balance its demand for raw materials with responsible investment practices that do not exploit local labor or destabilize markets. The success of this deal hinges on trust, transparency, and the ability of both nations to deliver on ambitious promises. The deal also sparks broader regional conversations. Neighboring countries are assessing how they can leverage similar agreements to maximize their own agricultural potential. Ghana, Ivory Coast, and Nigeria, already major players in the cocoa and cashew sectors, face new competition but also opportunities for collaboration. Could West Africa emerge as a unified hub for agricultural exports, collectively negotiating with global powers from a position of strength? Burkina Faso's bold move may be the first step towards such a future, inspiring a wave of strategic partnerships that amplify Africa's voice in international trade. Meanwhile, markets in Asia respond with palpable interest. Indian businesses, from confectionery giants to snack processors, are recalibrating their supply chains. Access to Burkina Faso's cocoa and cashew production promises stability amid fluctuating global prices. The deal also opens doors for Indian technological and financial investments, enabling the transfer of modern agricultural techniques, sustainable farming practices, and efficient processing technologies. The collaboration is designed not just for short-term profit, but for long-term industrial growth, a partnership built on foresight and mutual benefit. Analysts describe the deal as a potential turning point in global commodity trading. For years, Africa exported raw goods, while value-added production occurred elsewhere. Now, with strategic partnerships that prioritize local processing, Africa begins reclaiming a portion of the value chain. Burkina Faso's move could inspire similar agreements across the continent, establishing Africa as a producer, processor, and exporter with greater control over its own economic destiny. The reactions from global capitals vary. European powers, traditionally dominant in African agricultural trade, are cautiously observant, recognizing that their influence is being challenged. The United States, ever attentive to shifts in global trade alliances, notes the rise of Indian-African cooperation and its potential implications for broader geopolitical dynamics. Meanwhile, China, already deeply invested in African infrastructure and industry, monitors the development closely, aware that India's engagement could influence the balance of economic influence across the continent. On the ground, the impact is tangible. Smallholder farmers report growing optimism as local cooperatives prepare to engage directly with Indian buyers. Training programs in sustainable agriculture, quality control, and supply chain management are rolling out, ensuring that the benefits of the deal reach beyond major exporters to everyday citizens. Villages once marginalized in the global economy now have the tools, knowledge, and networks to participate meaningfully, marking a significant shift in the socio-economic landscape. This partnership also carries environmental implications. Both Burkina Faso and India are emphasizing sustainable farming practices, aiming to minimize deforestation, reduce chemical inputs, and implement efficient water management systems. By integrating sustainability into the trade deal, the nations demonstrate foresight. Long-term agricultural productivity depends not only on markets, but also on preserving the ecological systems that sustain them. The ripple effects extend to finance and investment. International banks and development institutions are recalculating risk profiles, recognizing that Africa is increasingly capable of managing high-value trade agreements independently. Investment flows, previously concentrated in extractive industries and infrastructure, may increasingly target agricultural development, processing facilities, and regional trade hubs. Burkina Faso's deal is not just a trade agreement. It is a signal to the world that Africa is open for strategic, mutually beneficial investment on its own terms. Yet the drama of this unfolding story lies not only in economic calculations, but in the broader narrative of global power. For centuries, Africa's story in international trade was written by outsiders. Now, nations like Burkina Faso are authoring their own chapters, setting the agenda, and challenging the status quo. India, rising alongside African nations as a collaborative partner, adds another layer to this dynamic, creating a multipolar landscape where alliances are negotiated, not imposed. Every cocoa pod harvested, every cashew nut exported, carries symbolic weight. They represent not just commerce, but assertion of sovereignty, of potential, and of a future where African nations define their destiny. The world is witnessing a subtle revolution. Markets, power dynamics, and influence are shifting, and the epicenter of change lies in the fertile fields of West Africa. As the deal is implemented, Burkina Faso's ambition becomes a model for the continent. By negotiating strategically, prioritizing value addition, and fostering international partnerships that respect sovereignty, African nations demonstrate that they are no longer passive participants in global trade. They are active shapers, capable of rewriting economic rules and creating new opportunities for generations to come. The question now is whether this momentum can be sustained. Global market fluctuations, political uncertainties, and competitive pressures from traditional powers all pose challenges. Yet the foundation has been laid. Burkina Faso has signaled clearly that Africa will no longer be content with the margins of global trade. The continent is ready to claim its place at the table, with confidence, strategy, and ambition. The deal with India is more than a contract. It is a statement. It is a beacon of Africa's potential, a declaration that the continent's agricultural wealth will be leveraged not for exploitation, but for growth, empowerment, and industrial transformation. It is a turning point, a narrative of bold choices, and a testament to Africa's emerging influence in global markets. Across West Africa, the air is charged with anticipation. Neighboring nations watch, global powers strategize, and investors recalibrate. Burkina Faso has ignited a movement, a game-changing approach to trade, partnership, and economic sovereignty. As cocoa and cashew exports flow toward India, the world realizes that the old order is giving way to a new era, one where Africa's voice is decisive, its markets dynamic, and its influence undeniable.